Good morning and welcome. You're watching Bloomberg Quint. This is Daybreak and I'm Alex Matthew. First, let's look at the headlines this morning. Asian markets open flat as geopolitics takes center stage. Focus shifts to Singapore when Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un get set for their historic meet on Tuesday. US President Donald Trump leaves the G7 summit in disarray. His advisors accuse the Canadian Prime Minister of deceit. The BSE and NSE decide to put all companies that are under the IBC process in the additional surveillance norms. And India wins the Intercontinental Cup, beating Kenya 2-0. Indian captain Sunil Chhetri is now at par with Messi on international goal count. All right, let's turn to the biggest story this morning. Both Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un have arrived in Singapore in preparation for their much-anticipated historic first encounter. That could end a nuclear standoff between the old foes and transform the secretive, impoverished Asian country. Kim, in his first public comments since arriving, said that Singapore's role would be recorded in history if the summit was a success. Bloomberg's Stephen Engels has been tracking this right from the get-go, and he's joining us live this morning. Good morning, Stephen. There's been a lot of posturing going into this. What's the feeling? Could something really long-term emerge? All right, we seem to have lost Stephen at the moment. We'll bring him back, of course. But in the meanwhile, let's do a check as to how the Asian markets are panning out. Remember, it's just about 7 o'clock, so a couple of the markets will be opening up right now. But the two that were open a little while back, that's the Nikkei and the Australian, of course, actually the Nikkei and the Kospi were both trading up about 0.3%. They've lost out to a certain extent some of those gains. While we can go back to Stephen in a little while from now, let's also take a check on the US markets and how they panned out on Friday. US stocks rose on Friday, adding to solid weekly gains, but their rise was kept in check amid increasing tensions between the US and key trade partners as the G7 summit kicked off. Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle wraps up Friday's market action in this report.
Stocks finished higher in Friday's Wall Street session, reversing early losses. Both the Dow and the S&P 500 climbed by about 0.3%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq up a little more than 0.1%. On the week, gains for each of the three major averages, both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq gaining for a third week in a row. But it was the Dow that was the big winner in this past week, up 2.8%, its best week since March 9th. As for sector composition on Friday, 9 of the 11 S&P 500 sectors finished higher, led once again by the consumer staples space, which has been up for a second day in a row, actually a third day in a row, rising, leading for a second day in a row and gaining about 2% over the last 3 days. Its best 3-day stretch since early April. This has really been a sector under pressure. But for the winners on Friday, Monster Beverage up more than 5%. We also had Kellogg up 2.3%, and Procter & Gamble rose by 1.4%. As for tech, of course, the sector came into the spotlight on Thursday with a bit of a pullback, which was causing some to wonder whether tech rotation was underway. Tech did finish down once again, but just slightly, down about 0.2%. Within the sector, though, there was a big noticeable laggard. That was Apple, which finished down about 0.9% on a report that the company has told its suppliers to expect smaller orders. That, in turn, weighed on some of those chip suppliers, including both Broadcom and Skyworks. But overall, with stocks rising modestly and Haven bonds pulling back, there was some risk appetite demonstrated in Friday's Wall Street session. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
All right, just to give you a bit of a sense of the markets that have opened up, the Chinese markets have opened, and a Hong Kong benchmark, and they're all trading in the red at the moment, so not the best cues heading into the trade session for India. But let's take a check as to what else happened on the weekend. US President Donald Trump upended. All right, sorry. So Stephen's back. Stephen Engels is back live with us. Thanks so much for joining us, Stephen. You've been tracking this right from the get-go, and there's been a lot of posturing from both sides, a lot of grandstanding. Is it really possible for something long-term to emerge? What's the feeling here?
Well, the feeling is that there could be more than just one summit. I think Donald Trump has said it rightfully, and that they're going to know a lot about the attitudes coming the first few minutes when they have the handshake in the building behind me here up on the hill. That is the Capella Hotel. That is where the summit tomorrow will be held. And of course, there are different definitions of what denuclearization is. The United States has insisted on CVID, complete, verifiable, irreversible disarmament, whereas the North Koreans, well, are they really going to give up their nuclear arsenal? They have vowed for complete denuclearization, but their definition of that might be a little bit different. So that's why the schedules of the two leaders is quite open right now. We have not gotten any schedule today for Kim Jong-un. And for Donald Trump, he is meeting with the Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong later this morning, and his advance team led by the Philippines, their ambassador to the Philippines, who's also a Korean part of the negotiating team with the North Koreans, Song Kim. He will be having, within this hour, last-minute meetings with the North Korean delegation to kind of figure out what kind of common ground perhaps they can reach at this summit, if it indeed goes one day, potentially two. Maybe among the low-hanging fruit, though, would be a peace deal. That would be the easy part, says Donald Trump. The difficult part, though, is going to be the progress and timeline to get from the North Koreans on denuclearization. Is Kim Jong-un serious about denuclearizing?
All right, thanks so much for that. We'll stay tuned to this story, and of course we'll come back to you for all the live updates. All right, let's move on now and take a check of what happened over the weekend. In fact, US President Donald Trump appended 2 days of global economic diplomacy over the weekend, refusing to vet a joint statement which had earlier been agreed to, threatening to escalate his trade war, and also deriding Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as dishonest and weak. Kathleen Hayes of Bloomberg News gets all the details in this report.
I've covered G5 meetings. I've covered G7 meetings.
G8 meetings.
I don't think anybody has seen anything quite like this in history. So another first for President Trump, which seems to have upended the G7 unity that was with such difficulty put together at this meeting in Quebec. And in fact, the statement itself had been put together, a joint statement. And part of the reason they could put it together is because President Trump was allowed to abstain from climate pledges, and it would look like it was all going to be signed. Justin Trudeau came out of the meetings and said that Canada had been insulted by the threat of tariffs on U.S. autos, right, coming into the United States. That's a big, big deal for Canada, of course, and that they would proceed with retaliatory tariffs if Trump would go ahead with these tariffs on them. So next, President Trump is on Air Force One, and he's heading over to Singapore to get ready for his big summit with Kim Jong-un, and he tweeted out that he was ordering his staff not to sign the G7 statement due to Trudeau's false statements. The reaction from foreign leaders starts with Agence France picking up news that President Macron of France's office was critical of Trump, saying that international steps cannot be dictated by insult and anger. Larry Kudlow, the president's chief economic advisor, said this about what Trudeau had to say on CNN on Sunday.
Stab this in the back. He really actually, you know what? He did a great disservice to the whole G7. He betrayed...
Trudeau did.
Yes, he did, because they were united in the G7. They came together.
And basically, Larry Kudlow also said that, in effect, President Trump had to strike out because what Trudeau said was undermining President Trump ahead of this very important summit.
We've got several issues there, including Trump's attempt to bring Russia back into the fold and make it the G8, which it was initially before 2014. Let's head now to Darshan Mehta, who's here to set us up for the day's trade and also to tell us what's happening in the futures and options space. Darshan, not the best cues getting into trade today.
It's decent, actually. You know, the S&P Nifty, is indicating a positive outlook. It's gained by another 10 points. So it was up almost 19 points. Now it's up close to almost 30 points. So that's the trend that we're getting in. But the ADRs, let's see how they ended up. Dr. Reddy's was up almost 4%. 0.4%. Tata Motors was up 1.5%. Infosys and Wipro managed to even inch up higher. So the ADRs are indicating a positive view that's coming in, except for HDFC Bank, ICICI and Vedanta, which were down in trade. So this is what happened overnight. Now the SGX Nifty is indicating a positive outlook, up almost 23 points. So that's a positive cue that's coming in at this point of time. If you're looking at it, the Nifty was down. The Nifty was down in trade on Friday. The Nifty Bank was down 66 points, but the bank PSU Banking Nifty, that one did extremely well. The Nifty PSU Bank, that was up almost 1.6%. So PSU banks have been doing rather well for itself. The two sectors which were buzzing in trade, the Nifty Pharma led by the big rally in Sun Pharma, and the media index which was up almost 1.2% in trade. So that's what happened among the sectors. Now on a month-to-date performance, the Nifty Pharma is up almost 5%, given the fact that the rally mainly happened on Friday. The oil and auto index are also doing well. Maruti is contributing, Tata Motors is contributing, and on the oil front, it's Reliance which has again started to contribute significantly. What has not done well this month is the Nifty Infra Index, the Nifty Small Cap Index, and the Nifty Realty Index, which have been down in trade. So this is what happened on a month-to-date basis. On a YTD basis, you know, it's been IT which has dominated everything. It's up almost 18% on a YTD basis. It's outperformed the Sensex, which is up just 4%, and the FMCG is there. So it's seeming that the money is moving back again into the defenses. What's not doing well? PSU Banking Index is down 18%. Small Cap and the Real Estate Index are down almost 16%. So this is what's happened on a YTD basis. So clearly money is not flowing into these sectors. Now these are the stocks at a fresh 52-week high. Bajaj Finance, First Source and Infosys. Basically these are the counters again you need to watch out for. Momentum certainly seems to be with these counters. What is not doing well is Quality, which is at a fresh 52-week low. Strides as well as Vatek Wabag did manage to hit their 52-week low before rising in trade, but nevertheless they're trading rather weak. How are the fund flows panned out? FI sold in almost 200 crores in the cash market. DIs are net buyers. Overall on the market, if you're looking at it, close to almost 6,000 crores of net buying that happened. And on the FII side, you need to say that, you know, majority of the buying has happened because of the limit that opened in HDFC Bank. As far as the Nifty is concerned, the Nifty was rather flat in trade. It ended absolutely flat. What contributed was Reliance, Sun Pharma and Infosys, which contributed. On the losing end, you had HDFC as well as ITC, which contributed. HDFC Bank, despite the FI limit being open, isn't contributing much to the Nifty itself. Now, if you're looking at the Nifty was absolutely flat, but open interest build-up was almost 2.5%. Even if you look at the Nifty Bank itself, the open interest was seen shedding by almost 1.9%. So a little bit of long unwinding was seen on the Nifty Bank itself. Now, if you're looking at where positions are being taken, put writers are much more aggressive at levels of 10,600 and 10,700 in trade on Friday. So that is where they are taking positions, and call writers are taking positions at the 10,700 and 10,800 levels. This is broadly where it is. Basically, 10,600 is the big support level for the market. Even where bulls are trying to bring positions on the 10,700. A little bit of resistance will come in at higher levels. 11,000 is the big resistance. So it will be range bound between the 10,700 to 10,800 level. At least that's what the markets are indicating. Now, if you're looking at the counters in the FNO band, Balrampur Chini and Dewan Housing were already there. Jet Airways is the new entrant on the FNO band, so it went down by almost 3%. The Nifty was unchanged. The PCR for the Nifty was unchanged as far as the Nifty was concerned. The Nifty Bank PCR also came down from levels of 0.80 from 0.89 to 0.80. So this is the Bank Nifty PCR. Basically, some stocks that you need to watch out for. Strides moved up yesterday on high open interest build-up of almost 35%. So that's something you need to watch out for. The other stocks in focus is Sun Pharma. Huge amount of short covering seen on the counter post the VAI for the Halol plant. So open interest was down 6%. The counter managed to move up almost 8%. So Fresh Bank was yet not seen on the counter. Castrol seems to be having trouble of its own. Open interest build-up of 6%. On the short side, the counter was down almost 5% in trade. Apart from it, Indian Bank yesterday on Friday saw open interest build-up of 20%. On the long side, it was up almost 5% in trade. And finally, if you're looking at it, Apollo Hospitals saw short covering. Open interest was down almost 15%. The counter did manage to move up by almost 5% in trade.
All right, thanks so much for that, Darshan. Let's move on now and speak about a key story. In fact, the National Stock Exchange has put 60 companies that are under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code under additional surveillance. Remember, a list had come out a little while back of the stocks that were being put under surveillance, and there was a lot of volatility in these. Sajit Mangat has this report to explain the significance of the move.
There has been a growing debate about how the stock exchanges and regulators should be looking at companies which are listed and are facing insolvency proceedings at the NCLT. And this debate has been going on for some time with the regulator, and the exchanges, as per part of their surveillance mechanism, have now decided that additional surveillance measures would be undertaken for all the companies which are under insolvency at the NCLT. There are nearly 60 companies which are currently in NCLT under various stages, and all these 60 companies will fall under the ASM. As part of the ASM mechanism, there would be initial 100% margin which is required to be made by anyone who is trying to buy or sell the shares. In addition, if the need be and if the stocks volatility persists, then these companies will again be put under a severe one, which is the trade to trade, where there is no intraday trade allowed on these companies, and the trades are only meant for delivery based. There will be other measures which like circuit filters and all, which are existing with the stock exchange, but both for now it's 60 companies which go into the ASM as we speak.
All right, let's shift focus now to the commodity space. Jayesh Kilnani is here with all the details there. Morning, Jayesh. What do you have for us today?
Morning, Alex. Let me start off with oil prices. We are seeing some bit of softness continue from Friday's session on the back of US rig counts and the boosted supply from Russia. So the US rig count, in fact, has remained at the highest level since 2015, and we understand that Russia has boosted its crude oil production by about 11.1 million barrels a day in the first week of June. As far as base metals are concerned, the index itself on London Metal Exchange snapped its 8-day winning streak. All metals except for zinc were down in trade. Now copper actually saw some profit booking and declined from a 4-year high. However, Macquarie is of the belief that the fundamentals and spreads look attractive for the copper markets. Lead, which was down about 2.5%, was the top loser in trade and snapped its 4-day gaining streak. This is on the back of the cancelled warrants, which dropped the most in a year in the European markets. Now, as far as precious metals are concerned, gold is still trading above the 1300 mark, but it was silver prices that posted the biggest weekly gain since the month of April.
All right. Thanks so much for that, Jayesh. Shraddha Babla joins us now with the stocks and news. Shraddha, what are the stocks on your list today?
Hi Alex, I'm going to start off with Welspun Corporation, which has received orders or contracts for supply of 72 kmt of API pipes, that is in the US market. Though they haven't really disclosed the value of the contract that they have won, they've said that with these additions, the current order book of the company stands at about 11,000 crores. You have Inox Wind, which is next in the list, where auditors Patankar and Associates have resigned, citing time constraints, so watch out for that name. Phoenix Mills, they have acquired under construction retail development in Lucknow for 453 crores. Watch out for that name. Board approval has come in for Punjab National Bank to divest stake in PNB Housing Finance, ICRA, CRISIL and BSE Limited. You have Goa Carbon, with the total production in May is up 62%, but the sales for the month of May are down nearly 20%, so watch out for that name. You also have a ET report which says that private equity fund Carlyle will or has actually put its entire 33% holding in PNB Housing Finance on the block, and they will be selling stake over a period of about 18 months. So watch out for that name as well. And lastly, on the back of bulk deals, we have PVR, where Baron Emerging Markets Funds sold 1.3% stake on a deal in Friday. They had about 1.57% stake as of March. So it's a near exit from PVR. So all those names to keep an eye out for.
Thanks so much for that, Shraddha. All right, now it's over to Somit Sarkar for the big brokerage calls of the day. Somit, what do you have for us today?
Good morning, Alex. On the big brokerage calls for the day, first we have is MK on Suven Life Science. Now, the brokerage has initiated coverage on the stock with a buy rating and a target price of 270, which suggests a return potential of more than 25%. Now, according to the brokerage, Suven Life is a compelling play on the recovery that is being witnessed in the global research and development spending among the pharma companies, as the company is into contract research and manufacturing services. Along with this, consolidation seen in the global clinical development and manufacturing organization is another growth catalyst when it comes to Suven Life Sciences. Now, there has been consolidation in both clinical research organization level as well as in the API manufacturing level, according to the brokerage. Now, the company, that is Suven Life, has enjoyed highest EBITDA margins in the CDMO business, and going forward the consolidated margins are expected to remain stable for the company at around 29% over the next 2 years. Overall, the brokerage is expecting the company's revenue and net profit to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 10% and 19% over FY18 to FY20. Second, we have is ICICI Securities on Mindtree. Now, the brokerage has maintained its reduced rating on the stock but has raised the target price to 955 from 800 rupees. Now, according to the brokerage, strong deal momentums will help the company sustain revenue growth in the first half of financial year 2019, but for the second half, the brokerage is expecting this momentum to slow down as the order intake would not sustain at this elevated level, according to the brokerage. Now, acquisitions done by Mindtree are showing gradual improvement on the top line. However, achieving the steady state of EBITDA margin of around 8 to 10% will still take time, according to the brokerage. The brokerage has revised its target price upwards as it believes that there are multiple levers for margin expansion like INR depreciation and lower drag from wage hikes, which will drive margin expansion for the company going forward.
All right, thanks so much for that, Somit. Now, clearly there's lots to talk about over the course of the day, and you'll find all the live market action right here on Bloomberg Quint. But there's also several stories on the website that you can consider reading. Here are just a few of them. The Competition Commission of India might recommend structural changes to the proposed $16 billion Walmart-Flipkart deal to address possible competition concerns. Fraud hit Punjab National Bank expects to recover 8,000 crore rupees in bad loans in the first quarter of the current financial year. The bank reported the highest loss in banking history in the fourth quarter, weighed down by non-performing loans. Now, here's a special story. Ather Energy, a Bengaluru-based electric vehicle manufacturer, recently launched 2 electric scooters in India, the Ather 340 and the Ather 450. Nishant Sharma takes the Ather 450 on a ride and tells us how it compares with your average petrol scooters.
This is 450, a smart electric two-wheeler by Ather Energy. Actually, one of the 2 smart electric vehicles by Ather Energy. Now, without further ado, I'm going to take this two-wheeler out for a spin. First, to understand, how does it really feel to ride an electric two-wheeler? Well, the first thing that hits you is that this scooter is really quiet. It's even hard to figure if it's turned on or not. And as far as the ride is concerned, it doesn't feel at all different from a conventional petrol scooter. Now, both the models come in a shade of white and has a 7-inch navigation dashboard, a first in India. That means that you don't have to struggle to reach to your phone every time to check the location while riding. You can simply push the location from your phone to the navigation dashboard via the Ather app, or you can enter the location on the dashboard itself. The company says that both the models are quicker than any other petrol scooter in the country.
The idea always was to build something that can keep up and actually possibly beat a petrol scooter in terms of performance, because electric is really that sort of a powerful technology, and with the 450 and 340 being able to do that. The 450 in particular is actually one of the quickest scooters in the market with a 0 to 40 time of 3.9 seconds, which means it can actually keep up with 150cc bikes. Top speed of 80, range of 75 kilometers, going up as high as 107 kilometers in the Indian driving cycle.
Well, my favorite feature in this two-wheeler is the park assist mode. Now, how many of you guys have faced the issue of reversing the vehicle where you literally have to drag it? Now, here I can't, on my own, reverse the vehicle. But with the park assist mode, all I have to do is just select the park assist mode and accelerate here, and the scooter can be easily reversed. Well, like this. Well, one big question every two-wheeler enthusiast will have: how long can these vehicles travel on a single charge? Well, this particular model that I drove, the 451, you can drive up to about 75 kilometers on a single charge. The other model, the 340, you can drive up to about 65 kilometers on a single charge. Now, as far as the charging infrastructure is concerned, which is the key to make the electric vehicle a success, Ather has already deployed such charging grid across about 17 different locations in Bangalore already. And its charging infrastructure is strategically placed at convenient locations such as cafes, inside mall parking, restaurants, tech parks, and will be open to all electric vehicles. And the location of the nearby charging grid can be found on the app or on the navigation dashboard.
We'll make sure you're never more than 4 kilometers away when we start shipping, and eventually we'll bring this number down to 2 kilometers. So range anxiety really ought not to be a problem. Anywhere in the city, you're never more than 2-3 kilometers away from the nearest charging point. We'll also ensure when you buy the vehicle, there is a charging point installed at your home. So an Ather team will come, do the installation, do the audit, and make sure the point is up even before the vehicle gets delivered. So getting the charging point up is not going to be your hassle. It's on us.
But if there's one thing that can pinch the customer, it's the price. Priced at about 1,09,750 for the 340 model and 1,24,750 for the 450 model, both the models are expensive than any other scooter in the country.
Overall cost of ownership, especially when you factor in the cost of fuel, the low cost of electricity basically ensures that you actually still have a better cost of ownership with the 450 and the 340 compared to petrol scooters. If you pair it with financing, right from day one, you will have the same cost as a petrol scooter, lower monthly outflow, and still a far more premium feature than any petrol scooter in the market out there.
And its closest competitor in India is Hero MotoCorp's electric scooter, codenamed AXL HE20. Hero MotoCorp is also an investor in Ather Energy. The yet-to-be-launched two-wheeler is expected to have a top speed of 85 km per hour and a battery range of 110 km on a single charge. Pricing, though, is yet to be announced.
In football, the excitement is palpable with the World Cup starting in a few days. And meanwhile, back home, India won a sweeping victory in the finals of the Intercontinental Cup. You may have come across Captain Sunil Chhetri's clarion call to fans. He asked fans to come to the stadium to support the team. And he didn't disappoint. In yesterday's final, India found the back of the net twice within the first 29 minutes against Kenya, with Chhetri securing one of the goals. And what's more, Kenya wasn't able to penetrate India's defence at all. And even more special is the fact that Sunil Chhetri became the joint second highest international goal scorer among the active players, along with Argentina's superstar Leo Messi. He has now scored 64 in 102 appearances. Who knows, India might just make it to the World Cup soon. All right, and tennis world number one Rafael Nadal lifted his 11th French Open title in Roland Garros on Sunday, beating 7th seed Austrian player Dominic Thiem in straight sets. Nadal led by 2 sets and also had a break early in the third when he got a cramp on the middle finger of his left hand. Remember, that's his serving hand. But he went on to win the championship 6-4, 6-3, 6-2. He's now 32 years old and he's only second behind Roger Federer in terms of record Grand Slam title wins. Meanwhile, 24-year-old Thiem says he is confident his first appearance in a Grand Slam final will not be his last. On that note, thanks so much for watching Daybreak. There's a lot more to look forward to over the course of the day, so do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.